Three, two, one.
We'd like to welcome you to another edition of Grok Talk, brought to you by New Hampshire's leading conservative blog site, GraniteGrok.com. We are your feared extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for more news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com.
Grok Talk.
And we are back. I'm Skip Murphy, your host, along with Grokster Mike. Along with me, we still have Max Abramson here. Going to ride shotgun with us. Shotgun, that's an appropriate thing to say. And we are going to bring Representative Josh Moore on, who's going to talk about a notice that was put out by the New Hampshire Department of Education Commissioner Virginia Barry, which I've tauntingly said, parents, you have no rights to your kids. And this has to do with going and the testing that's coming on, the quote-unquote mandatory testing, where she is basically saying there is no mandatory way for you to come out, to take your students out of that by parents. And Josh, I want to say thanks for coming in to Grok Talk.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So what's this kerfuffle, and who's right?
Well,
and who's wrong? And that's more important.
Well, I like to think that the parents are right, and I like to believe that the parents are always right. Starting off with that. Yeah, there you go. The customers are always right.
Customers are always right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, customers are always right.
Mostly.
So here's what sparked this whole thing. Well, this goes back several years, obviously, but we just had a bill come through, HB 603, which is Representative J.R. Hull, and he is a prime sponsor of this. What this bill simply does is closes any possibility of a penalty being brought against the school district, the parents, or the students for opting out. That's what the bill does. It's in big, bold letters. Now, here, when I was in the hearing, I think it was last Tuesday or whatever, a couple weeks ago, I questioned the Board of Education because, and to be honest with you, I actually was a little frightened, and I told them, I said, this looks like something, quote, that would come out of the Soviet Union. This is dangerous stuff, and I'll just read several parts off on this letter that came.
Josh,
Yep.
Actually, it's even worse than that. Now, there's a thing in the blogosphere called Godwin's Law, which basically says whoever brings up Nazis or Hitler loses the argument first. But
right.
I did write this. I said Commissioner Virginia Barry just beat the nationalist, socialist, the Nazi Hermann Goebbels. At least he was honest about his intentions. He said, "We don't need you. We have your children." And that is a scary thought. And basically what this technical note is saying the same thing, different way.
That's exactly right. And I'm glad you pointed that out because I had a couple people tell me, they said, you just don't bring anything like that. Don't bring anything like that up in public. You'll be seen as a radical. Well, you know what? We're in radical times now. We haven't seen this ever. I mean, there have been bits and pieces in U.S. history where things like this tried to come up, but it's never been this much in our faces. We've got a serious problem. And here's some of the parts in the letter for those who are listening. It says there is no opting out option for students in the law. It goes on further to say, therefore, parents have no legal right to opt their children out. Down at the very bottom of the second paragraph here, it says, further, the district's legal obligations must supersede parental demands that their children not take the assessment. And lastly, this is the most frightening part to me. The district's legal obligations are clear. The districts must not allow any citizen to prevent their district from fulfilling its mandate to administer the assessment to all public school students in the designated grades. Government is saying, get out of our face. You have no right, parents. You're not going to get in our way to doing what we've been mandated to do.
Yeah,
that's scary.
that should scare anybody because the whole purpose of government is that taxpayers pay them to do certain things. They are supposed to be our public servants. They are our employees. How dare they turn around and say, regardless of what... And I would go after the legislators who wrote the law. But there are times when people should say, this is the wrong thing period, and do all that they can to go back to, again, the freedom in the Constitution. Who owns you is really the libertarian way of putting things. And I started off being conservative. I've become more and more libertarian as I walk through all this mess of stuff. And it really is. The government is saying, we own your children. And that is scary, that you have no rights to that. And it's an attitude that's been going on for years. And I've been blogging about this. I've had video of teachers saying parents don't know less than their kids do, with the insinuation of, we have taught your kids something else.
That's exactly right. And what they kept bringing up, the board kept bringing up, was the fact that this could be in violation of the federal law. Well, here's my problem. Here's my ultimate problem. I've told many people, first of all, the Department of Education has the Federal Department of Education has absolutely no constitutional right to even be established. It is found nowhere in the 18 enumerated powers. And I actually had one of the representatives tell me, that's your interpretation of the Constitution. No, it's not. It's the 10th Amendment. Any power not delegated to the federal Congress is left and reserved there to the people in the states. That simple.
Who said that?
You want to know? Is it okay if I name drop?
Absolutely, you should, because the people who do this, who say things that aren't true, they need to be called out.
Yeah.
And I have a special page, Progressives and the Proper Role of Government. And all it is, and a lot of them are New Hampshire state representatives or state senators, they're saying things that are obviously wrong. I would like to get that in writing so I can put it up on the page.
I would totally agree with you, and I'd be more than happy to. I was just making sure I was loud.
Up to this point now, with the FCC changing
oh my gosh, I know.
the internet stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as it's not slander, go for it.
That was Representative Peter Schmidt.
And he said?
And he said that after I had told him that the Department of Education at the federal level had no constitutional groundings and we should keep our money in state education money, he said that is your interpretation. And he actually told me if I should be there a few months longer to have an opinion. So, and for those who are listening, I'm not one to sit there and trash talk. I don't do that. I don't like trash talking. But I feel for a lot of people because I'm ready to call these people out. We have
every day.
Socialism and communism taking over our country. It's taking over our states and our federal government. I mean, you look at the FCC, you have Obamacare, you have the Department of Education pushing Common Core, which has the SBA attached to it, which is pushed and forced, obviously. As
SBA being?
The state...
is that the testing?
Yes, the standard balance
Smarter
assessment.
Balance.
Yes. Smarter balance assessment test.
There's a wonderful cartoon out there I'll have to post of the doors. It says healthcare / Obamacare, and several other things, and finally internet / Obamanet.
Now, this is absolutely dangerous stuff, and we've got to wake up. Because you have a lot of people out there who are still scared. They're still scared to step out and call things what they are. And it's about time, and I love the fact you guys are on every Saturday because we have got to call these things out for what they are. When we call somebody a communist or a socialist, we're not name-calling. We're calling you what you are due to your ideology and what you believe, your fundamental beliefs.
It's also due to your results.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And they don't seem to understand that. Now, there are some, I'll admit, I'll make sport of, because if you tick me off, you've made it personal, and I go, okay, you just waved the green flag at me. Here goes. But in a lot of what we do, Mike, myself, Steve, Susan, all of the writers, we're looking at your results. And if you act according to a specific ideology, we have no problem in calling you out on that, because our foundations are the New Hampshire Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and to a smaller degree, the NHGOP platform, which tends to be very conservative. Mm-hmm. The problem is a lot of these people, even on the right in the Republican Party, don't act according to that stuff. And you're right, Josh. We need to call them out. And we need people like you and people like you, Max, to go in and say, look, my voters, my electorate voted me in to have an opinion.
Yep. So,
Representative Schmidt, don't tell me to shut up and stay in the back benches, because I'm not going to. I like what Glenn Reynolds says of Instapundit, the huge news aggregator. I just love his ideas. Punch back twice as hard. You do something to me, I'm going to do it to you, because I learned personally a long time ago, the only way you're going to shut a bully up, punch him in the nose.
Yep.
And then they go away. And if they come back, you do it again. People don't like the idea. Oh, that's force. Oh, that's violence. Well, yeah, it's also effective in the right situations. It's not violence for the sake of violence. It's violence for the sake of creating a result, which means shut up and get out of my face.
Yeah, and I actually talked to there's several representatives.
The state takeover of everything.
Yeah. There are several representatives on the education committee that are very conservative, and they stand strong for what they believe in, and we vote very much the same, obviously. But I told one of them on Facebook the other day, I said, it's time we stand up. It's time we stand up and take our nation back, and our state, starting with the state. We've got to stand up and fight, because we're losing it.
Yeah, Josh, if you've listened to us or read us, and I don't know if you're a regular reader of Granite Crock or not, but we do have that phrase, screw D.C., save New Hampshire. And we really...
And there are a number of states beginning to think that, which is why you're starting to hear people talk about secession.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, just as a tangent, there's about 13 cities and towns in New York that want to secede to Pennsylvania because New York has stopped fracking. And they're saying, we're poor, we're destitute, and now you're going to tell us we can't make any money off of what's rightfully ours? And they want to move to Pennsylvania where fracking is legal. But anyways,
and
Josh,
along the other border, they're wanting to join Vermont, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've seen that.
But not Connecticut.
No. But do you find, Josh, a lot of, and Max as well, you need to pipe in here at the right time. We'll go, I'll be traffic cop here. Do you find a lot of people in the legislature no longer willing to sit back and be nice? Are you starting to see more of a militant attitude, especially those on the right, not only against the socialist Democrats, but also the establishment GOP, especially those Jaspercrats that support the House Speaker?
Here's what I've noticed. I'm a freshman rep, so I've only been in there now about 2 months.
Yep.
So having not been in there prior to that, I can't say that I've noticed them stepping up or backing down. I will say that I've seen people step up to the plate and fight for the freedom. I will say, though, that, as it's been said many times already, you would think that the Republican majority is actually a Democratic majority this go around, because our bills are burning. A lot of the good bills are just burning on the House floor. It's disgusting.
And you know what? It's the House Majority Leader, Flanagan, who keeps going around time and again. You'll look at the blue sheet, and it's Republican, platform Republican after platform Republican signing up in favor of a bill, and Flanagan is showing up and speaking or signing off against a bill. Again and again, Republican bills are being fought by the quote-unquote majority leader. So you have the minority leader, the majority leader, and the speaker taking
why doesn't
the
the
Democratic
House
side.
evict the majority leader since he doesn't represent the majority? It's time to censure the man and kick him out. I mean, he's one of my townsfolks. He also likes the sound of his voice too much.
Yeah.
And the point is, he's wholly owned and operated by Jasper and the Democrats.
Jasper works directly under Shurtleff and Ray Buckley. And in fact, we see Jasper up there with Shurtleff and Buckley all the time. We see him talking with Democratic leadership, and we don't see him talking to certainly not any platform Republicans.
I would love to get video of him talking with Buckley. I really would.
If we had a Republican Party, these folks would be censured and kicked out.
Yeah.
Josh, back to you and this memo. So you mentioned, like everything else, we are the ADD bloggers here at Granite Rock. We go all over the place. Squirrels. So back to this technical memo and J.R. Hole's bill to basically punch a big hole in it. Where is that bill right now? Does it have a chance of getting through the House and the Senate and getting signed by Maggie the Red Hassan? Or are we just punching at the wind here? What else can be done other than parents standing up and basically doing civil disobedience and saying, screw you?
Well, I suppose naturally my my first inclination would be, may as well just stand up and give civil disobedience because I'm tired of doing this stuff. But we're just prolonging the inevitable. With that said, there is a process that we're going through right now, and to just give you a quick snapshot of that process, we just came out of the hearing, as I said, about a week and a half ago, roughly, and we're going into exec session, as Representative Abramson has talked about a little bit, and that'll be Thursday. And there's at 9 a.m. there's going to be this whole get together to push against this in the exec session. Now that the exec session is public, the public just can't give their input, and that's, as Representative Abramson has stated, that is for the committee to debate on. Now, as far as getting past the committee and then the House and Senate to the governor, I think it'll pass the committee, or it'll pass the committee regardless. It's just simply a recommendation the committee will give. I think it will give an ought to pass to it, I think. I'm sure that the argument against it is going to be having to do with in violation of federal law and this and that, the stuff that we get sick and tired of hearing because half of them are unconstitutional anyway. But with that said, I think it'll get passed, and when it goes to the House floor, I'm actually not 100% sure. I'd like to think that it'll pass the House floor, and I like to think that it'll pass the Senate. I doubt it'll get signed into law. I'd be absolutely flabbergasted if it hasn't.
Yeah, and I'm very disappointed to see or hear that you don't think it'll pass to the House, because that is one of the primary planks of the NHGOP platform, that parents they own their kids. They are responsible for their kids and not the state.
Right. You know, back in the 1990s, it was the first time I started hearing parents say that they were going to the school, and the school administrators and sometimes the principals and occasionally even the teachers were starting to say, the 1990s, you know, these aren't your kids, these are our kids, butt out.
And that's exactly the attitude.
I saw that attitude.
Now, if you look at the history of that, Goals 2000, which is one of the planks of Agenda 21, is a huge voluminous tome about how education was going to be taken over. And it's in fact, Common Core is just a piece of it.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, because I've been writing about this for a while, and I've caught teachers on tape basically saying the same thing, that, Max, that they believe they own the kids.
Yeah,
the
they do.
state owns the kids. Again, as you said, this is a very scary thought. Now, has Virginia Barry been challenged on this memo by anybody, any of the legislators? What has been her response to this?
She has been emailed a lot by parents and many of the activists around the state. I don't know that she has responded. I think she did respond. I should have brought the email in. I think she did respond to someone. I just can't remember what the exact response was.
Paraphrase.
It's just it. I'm trying to remember exactly what she even said. I'm making sure if it was her or so it was somebody else from the department, and I'm blanking on it. I actually should have kept it because I saw it like a week ago, and it was very general. But I actually have something here that would probably be a little more interesting, which is at the last paragraph. It says, a well-educated populace is an essential for the maintenance of democracy. It continues on. That is under RSA 193-C1. That is the current law in the state. And I'm confused because I asked them this. I said, how is a well-educated populace that's essential for the maintenance of democracy, how does that work with what you've got all written up top? That isn't democracy. You're saying, democracy, that's great, we want it, but shut up, we own your kids.
Yeah, that just says, because democracy. I mean, that's a fallacious argument.
After you voted, we're going to shove you around.
Yeah.
At best, it's mob rule, where the tyranny of the majority. And frankly, it's worse than this because we can't remove these people, not easily.
No, and we're seeing that more and more, where we are morphing into the progressive end goal, which is the administrative state, whereby it is the unelected, unaccountable, and almost unpitchforkable bureaucrats. Right. We're seeing that with the FCC. We see it with the IRS. We see it with administrative entity. Regardless of what level you're at, they just say, we will make the rules, and they will have the force of law, even to the point of declaring, we will tell you what is a felony or not, even though it hasn't gone through the legislative process, which is if anything, that is what democracy is, where our elected representatives, like you, Max, like you, Josh, you folks are supposed to make the laws. The executive branch is only supposed to execute them. And what they've done is, once again, like I say, the rule of bureaucracy, private or public, they want to expand what they do, so they start making all these rules. You guys have got to clamp down and persuade your other fellow legislators. Do not leave it up to the executive branch to make these rules. If you're going to legislate, get down to the nitty-gritty details. And if that means you only pass or consider 50 laws instead of the 1,200 laws, so be it. At least do it the right way. We may still grumble, but at least then we can say, we elected these rascals.
And yet
now
half of our bills going through the state legislature repeal, reduce old statutes or penalties, reduce something from a felony back to a misdemeanor as it was in the old days. Half the bills going through right now, here's the positive side, half the bills going through are intended to protect rights rather than take them away. In other state legislatures, almost all of the bills would take away rights.
Yeah, there's a couple of places. I think even may have been Wisconsin or maybe I was going to say maybe even Minnesota, where they've actually had unlegislative sessions to undo some of this stuff. But we need a lot more of it, Josh.
Yeah. Just a little off topic from what I was intentionally going to talk about for the most part. I just read the calendar this morning for next week for the bills that are going to be voted on. There's actually a bill going through that is relative to judges and taking away their pensions after impeachment, taking away their pensions and their health care. And it was it came out of committee as inexpedient to legislate, which is to kill the bill, essentially.
Right.
So they want it killed. Representative Timothy Horgan wrote up the blurb, and the blurb essentially, one of their main points was, this doesn't happen often. This has only happened. There's only been 2 impeachment trials in New Hampshire for any judge. That was in 1790 and in 2000, and they came out as, I think, not guilty, if I'm not mistaken. But with that said, if that's their main argument for that it doesn't happen often, so let's not worry about it, then why in the world push the death penalty and repealing it, since the last one was done in the 1930s? They act like it's an epidemic or something. You know, you use one argument in one place, and then the same argument you don't put in the other place to push your agenda. It doesn't register with me at all.
But not very persuasive.
Yeah, no, not at all. And these things have to be tackled. But this edict, as I like to call it, from the Department of Education is outrageous.
It is an edict. It's the only way to describe it.
Okay, as long as you brought up Mr. Timothy Horrigan.
Oh.
Yeah.
Horrigan the Horrible.
Yeah, this absolutely
kind of like Hagar, except not funny.
Yeah, we're gonna bring this discussion about Commissioner Barry to a halt here. And this goes back to what we were talking about before on that Gordon Peters stoppage. You know, the felon with the Kel-Tec 5.56 pistol and the shotgun and all that stuff. Timothy oftentimes will leave comments on our articles, and at least I have to give him kudos for somebody who was so far left. Yeah. Willing to come to, I would say, we're a very conservative blog site in a lot of ways. At least he tries the engagement. The problem is he leaves the comments which oftentimes have nothing to do on topic or brings up facts that have nothing to do with the main argument. And he is the WTF moment of the day because he wrote on this. I don't know how significant this little fact is, but I see Mr. Potter was in fact arrested without a shot being fired. You're absolutely right, Timothy. It is of no significance whatsoever. It has nothing to do with anything other than if he had fired a shot, then he would have broken at least one more law. And that's all he goes. And then he goes, you know, in addition to being busted on weapons and drugs charges, the guy was busted on impaired driving charges. But you don't even to be saying that the DUI law should be abolished. I didn't even bring up the DUI laws. I'm just saying I was concentrating on the firearm. So once again, here's Timothy bringing stuff into the argument that have no relation to whatsoever. But this was I just couldn't believe he said this. I happen to be a motor vehicle enthusiast, okay, who belongs to the American Automobile Association. Okay, that's AAA. Most of us belong to the AAA either for the triptychs, before GPSs came out, and to get your flat tire fixed or your car hauled away or what have you. Maybe you take advantage of some of their travel stuff or maybe some of the insurance, but flats, batteries, and tows is basically what we do. Motoring enthusiast? I'm not sure. So I happen to be a motorcycle enthusiast who also belongs to the AAA, which is kind of like the National Rifle Association for drivers. And I went, what? National Rifle Association for drivers. I'm sorry. I told him this is the stupidest thing he's ever written.
I guess he's equivalently. Dear me.
Oh, well,
I guess he's setting an equivalency between Top Gun and Top Gear.
Yeah, my organization, for what it's worth, does not favor abolishing all the motor vehicle laws. The AAA certainly doesn't favor protecting drunk drivers for the consequences of their actions. I mean, I look at this and go, there's a lot of stuff that could have been the WTF, like the internet takeover. Are now federal dietary guidelines have to make sure that we're not violating Gaia because now you have to think of the environment when you're eating. I mean, that could have been another WTF that I would have brought up. But I'm sorry, this morning, Timothy Horrigan, ding, 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 you get our WTF moment of the day for that.
So you're saying they do believe in a god, Gaia?
They do. Well,
that and the global warming priests.
Mother Nature, any alternative god.
Yeah.
That God doesn't exist, they say, but then they say that
Wait. Can't we put these lefties who like ISIS together with ISIS and have them beheaded and blown up for worshipping false idols?
Yeah.
As ISIS rampages through ancient sources of civilization and destroys everything in its path because they're idols and false gods.
Are you referring to ISIS, the false god, or ISIS, the terrorist organization?
Yeah, the Egyptian god or not. Yes.
In favor of third-party ballot access, I said this in front of the Elections Committee. I said Congress's approval rating is now lower than some of the media outlets and groups that support terrorists in the Middle East. And I looked up the exact numbers, and some of them have 20 and 30% approval ratings in the country that they happen to be operating in. Congress has approval rating of something like 9%.
Yeah. Well, the other WTF that I was going to bring up. Here we are. We're all talking about ISIS right this moment, so very apropos. That, once again, who does DHS come out as far as being the most dangerous domestic terrorist organization ever? It's the Sovereign Citizen Movement. And I just went, okay, this is just like when Obama first came into office and declared, who are the domestic terrorists? Limited government, less taxes, the Constitution, the Tea Party, returning vets. I mean, it was everybody except the real terrorists, like Bill Ayers and the old Weatherman type folks. Yeah. And you just look at this and you go,
maybe Obama.
My
maybe
country
Obama's
is just.
a weatherman.
I've been around a long time than you two gentlemen, not as long as Mike, and I go, our whole country must be on drugs at the top level right now for the last 7 years. Yeah. I just don't understand. And they said we're going to turn everything upside down, inside out.
Do you remember around the time of the 2012 election, what President Obama came out and said? It was a very, very scary, and we should be playing this clip over and over and over and over again every day to remind people. He was
Something
out on
about
stage,
revenge?
He was talking to a crowd, and I can't remember which speech it was, but he said, the voices that you're hearing talking about tyranny is right around the corner. You should reject these voices. You should reject these opinions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Coming from him.
Yeah, well, and again, and this will have to be the closing note because, folks, we're just about out of time. And I want to say thanks to Max Abramson, Josh Moore for coming in. Of course, Mike, who's always in every single week, and even Steve, who showed up on the phone. From CPAC. So, folks, I want to say thank you very much for coming in. I've run out of time. We're going to cut this short. Folks, listen. Thank you for listening to Grok Talk.
Yeah, baby!
All of the music on this program comes to us through Creative Commons licensing from Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com. The opinions expressed on this program are those of the speakers, not necessarily those of CNHT, GraniteRock.com, or anyone else for that matter.